Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another Rocket Matter CLE webinar. My name is Nefra McDonald. I am the Business Development and Strategic Partnership Coordinator here at Rocket Matter. And today we're going to be talking about how to optimize your billing and collections to make your practice more profitable. Just a couple of housekeeping things to take care of at first. Just so you're aware, the CLE number will be given at the end of the presentation. We'll be sending a wrap-up email tomorrow around noon with the recording, the slides, and any resources that we discuss during this session. And just a little bit about Rocket Matter. So Rocket Matter is the leading cloud-based practice management software and a Florida Bar member benefit. You can visit the Florida Bar member benefit page for more information. This is presented in conjunction with the Florida Bar Practice Resource Institute, which strives to bring attorneys the resources they need to run better law firms. So let's talk about this topic at hand and why it's so important for us to understand. 39% of a law firm's total client base is typically past due. If you're on this webinar, you probably have some sort of desire to change this. And, there's simple facts that you have to deal with. Clients don't always pay on time. And, almost 40% of them will fall into this past due category. And this is a trend nationwide. So in this latest report on the state of the legal market, we see that law firms are collecting less and less from their clients each year, and it's been a downward trend for many years now. So here are some reasons why this might be happening. Aside from a client's inability to pay, here are some reasons why your billing and collection cycle might be longer, or you might not see any money on some of these bills at all. So when bills are sent inconsistently, it breaks the client's trust. They might think that they're getting these services for free at some point if it's been more than 2 months or 3 months without them getting a bill, or they haven't seen a bill for work that happened 2 months before. So that lag time between when the work was performed and the bill was received also breaks clients' trust and also makes them less interested in what you even have on that invoice. They want to see something that's timely. The things that are going to matter to them is something that you may have done 30 days prior or 2 weeks prior that you're asking them to pay for your time for. Another reason why a client might reject a bill or dispute something is them not understanding the billing description. Now, if they don't understand the billing description, they might just discard the bill and say, well, that wasn't what I asked them to do, or I don't understand. They may call you or they may not, and they may just ignore the bill. Now, if you don't have a good follow-up system, that lack of follow-up from the law firm, and you're not following up with the client, you're not giving them an opportunity to answer that question, or to remind them that you perform services for them and that they have a bill due. The last one I want to talk about here is the method for invoice payment is inconvenient for the client. So if you're sending out a paper bill, or even if you're sending an email bill, and the only way for your client to pay you is if they mail you a check, it may not be the most convenient thing for them. I mean, I know for me personally, I rarely use my checkbook. I use it to make, even my rent payment now is online. So these are things that people rarely use anymore. So being able to accept credit cards or e-checks is a much more convenient way to pay. And plus, if they receive your bill and then they have the ability to pay you immediately and just take care of it, they can just do that. A lot of my own bills are on bill pay. I'm sure a lot of yours are automatic there too. So definitely think about offering alternative ways to bill, and we'll talk about that. The other thing I want to make sure I talk about is billing as a skill, not a talent. You may have categorized billers and collectors before as, it's a talent. But these are things that can be trained. They are skills that you can learn. However, there is something to be said about not being interested in doing billing or in making those collections calls. I know it's a very uncomfortable topic for attorneys, is asking their clients for money that they're owed, but recognize that that's your value and you're bringing value with the services that you're providing. So you should be able to collect on these as well. So folks, I do want to remind you, as we're going through some of the tips that I'm about to cover. If you have any questions, please put them in the questions widget of the GoToWebinar control panel, and I will get to them as the presentation goes on or at the end when we have some designated time. So here's some tips that you can take on to really try to get this billing thing and this collections thing under control. We're going back to that training skills in billing. So if you're in the position to mentor young attorneys, identify the opportunity to train them on billing and collections. It's not something you learn in law school. So allow them to bill small matters early in their careers. Make sure that they have your mentorship or a mentor at your firm to turn to for billing and collections questions and discussions. For example, a good discussion to have is if they send out a bill and they're doing things right, they're sending it out on time and they're following up on it, but the client comes back to them and says, I don't understand this description. I refuse to pay for this, and trying to discuss that with the client and figuring out how they can either get that paid for in full or come to some middle ground and negotiate that bill. So a good young biller and collector will be a good old biller and collector. So this is a worthwhile exercise because you're engendering a culture of mentorship in the profession, and these young attorneys will hopefully be with your firm for a very long time. And I'm sure some of you wish that you had that mentorship as you were coming up, or maybe you had a great mentor who taught you some of these things. So pass that knowledge along. Tip number 2, don't force everyone to bill. This is going back to that statement about people just not wanting to bill, not having that desire. They're just people who can't because they just freeze, they get overwhelmed. So do yourself and them a favor and give the responsibility to somebody else. This isn't saying that you should take time tracking away from these lawyers completely, though, because there are tools out there to help them easily capture their time, like practice management software and even voice controlled time tracking through Tally, and I'll touch on them later. So remember, your good billers need to be responsible for billing your major clients. You don't want to screw those bills up or send out anything inaccurate or something that is not timely. So remove the billing responsibility from the lawyers who are reluctant to do it, or they refuse to send out timely bills. So if you've got an office manager, or if you're a partner and you're managing younger attorneys or associates, if you detect that inability in that lawyer to bill, you need to act quickly, find the cause, either train them up and eliminate some of those bad billing habits, or assign that responsibility to somebody else. So you're really in this culture of developing a good biller and a good collector and removing that responsibility from people that just can't. Tip number 3 is to develop written billing policies and procedures. So we'll go through this in more detail a bit later in the presentation, but a good example is billing every possible transaction monthly at the very least. Or another example could be having a minimum dollar value threshold for bills that you're sending out if you're printing paper bills, because there's a cost associated with printing out bills, stuffing the envelopes, maybe sending out a self-addressed stamped envelope to get that payment back in quicker. That does take time. And if you're sending out a bill for $25, it might not be worth that cost or that time. However, if you're using an electronic invoicing system and collecting payments online with credit cards or e-check, that threshold should just go out the window because it's money that your firm is missing. And those bills can also just stay in the monthly cadence regardless of the dollar value. So definitely things to think about, but writing these billing policies and procedures down is helpful because as people come in and out of your firm, having these in place and having a standard will allow anyone to come in and know what your policies are. This shouldn't be something you have to train and retrain all the time, although if it's necessary, it's worth it because it's money in. But making sure that these are written down and followed will also let any other attorneys or office managers or paralegals know what your expectations are around billing, what your procedures are, so that things always run smoothly and everyone knows what's expected of them within the firm. Tip number 4, follow up on past due invoices. This seems like a no-brainer, but a lot of people send out bills and then don't follow up. So if you want to turn receivables into cash, follow up is essential. So whenever an invoice is more than 30 days old, you need to send a new statement, maybe with the invoices attached, and then further follow-up letters at 60 days and 90 days. At the end of 90 days, you've got to take that file away from the lawyer that's billing. And it's got to go to somebody for collection, because I've heard this analogy about, not analogy, it was an actual story from an attorney who was a criminal defense attorney, and he shows up for the client's hearing only to figure out that that client has not paid him for his services in full at that point. At that point, he was, 3, almost 4 months past due. And at that point, you can't remove yourself from the case without some serious trouble from the judge. It's a really terrible, uncomfortable situation to be in. That lawyer probably never saw a dime from that client past what he got from the initial retainer. So you really have to stay on top of this. If he had saw that at 30 days or 60 days, there may have been some room to get removed from the case once he figured out the client either was unable or unwilling to pay. But at that point, you're in front of the judge, you can't really get out of it. So, and the other thing too is lawyers are sometimes reluctant to aggressively pursue their clients that are slow to pay them. So if there's a partial payment that they can get to you, you got to take it. There are ways for you to set up automatic recurring payment plans that will hit that client's account the same time every month once you agree to that. So it would either hit their credit card or their bank account, and they're paying down on work that you've already performed. There's ways for you to automate that. We can talk about that, but making sure that you're following up on those past due invoices, asking your clients, how they can catch up, when they can pay, and maybe even setting up a policy to stop work if the client hasn't paid on that retainer, making sure that you set that agreement up at the beginning. We'll talk more about that too. All of these are helpful tips to kind of avoid this process, but making sure that follow-up is key. Tip number 5, make sure your bills describe the work you've done in a way your client can understand. So your bills need to describe your services. So if a client can easily understand what you've done and digest it, it's easy for them to just pay because the fee is acceptable. Good, I'm going to pay this. A lot of software these days can allow you to enter in the billing description and the details that your client wants on their invoices. Over time, you'll learn, especially with long-term clients, what they're looking for and what they like to see. Goes back to that training. The likelihood that the client refuses to pay something is higher when you put in a 2 or 3 word description for something that could have maybe used a little bit more detail. So invest in good software that takes some of this burden away and just make it really easy for you to put this down, because without it, you're going to need to spend a lot more time editing your draft of your invoice, and that takes you much longer to get your bill out. So making sure that the software is centralized, easy to use, it eliminates that old excuse of, I don't have enough time to bill. So the other thing to make sure too is having a second set of eyes to look over those descriptions, just to make sure that, there are no errors or omissions or grammar mistakes. That's a really good practice before the bill goes out, because it is a main form of communication with a lot of your clients. Tip number 6, effective collections requires timely billing. The sooner you send your bill after completing client work, the faster the client will pay. So different types of cases are going to require different billing strategies, but you want to make sure that you bill transactional matters at or before closing, because clients typically reinvest the proceeds of their closings. Make sure you're billing your litigation files at least monthly. A lot of firms are billing on a continuous monthly billing cycle, may even be billing bi-weekly as well. Something to think about, but you do want to make sure that your clients expect their bill every 2 weeks or every 30 days, and they get it delivered on those days every month without fail. Tip number 7, ask for retainers and set up an agreement to replenish them regularly. Here's a red flag. A client who wants a great result and is super excited to sign the agreement with you, but just can't advance you maybe $2,000 to get the groundwork done. You want to be able to take a retainer from a client, hit the ground running, get their case worked up, and know that once that retainer falls to a certain level or a certain threshold, that you can replenish that retainer. So Rocket Matter, for example, has a feature for evergreen retainers. So you can take that initial retainer amount, and once that retainer falls below a certain threshold, it will automatically add it to the next invoice in addition to any outstanding work that you've done. So if it's over and above what is left in the trust account, it will ask for that money plus whatever it takes to replenish the retainer to that minimum threshold that you set. Also think about the wording of this retainer in your initial agreement with your client, your fee agreement, whether that retainer is refundable, non-refundable, whether they're going to be doing this on a monthly basis or on that evergreen basis based on the minimum amount you should have in the trust account. So think about these things as you're meeting with your clients and make sure that you've got at least a reserve to work with so that you don't have to stop work on a matter. Tip number 8, use financial reports to maintain better billing and collections habits. So everyone should receive their work in progress and age accounts receivable reports every month to review, just so they know where their cases are in terms of bringing money into the firm. Better yet, everyone should see everyone's cases. If you've got that kind of transparency in your firm, it's great, because there's nothing like some good peer pressure to kick attorneys into action when it comes to collections. If each attorney is responsible for making sure that those bills are paid, it's a little bit of shaming, but it might work. The other thing that might work too is getting yourself a part-time, if you don't want to have a full-time person on this, a part-time billing associate. So this person is strictly there to receive the age accounts receivable reports, take them, digest them, start following up with all of the people that are past due, asking them how they like to take care of their bill. We've seen at a lot of firms that just having this person in the office a few hours a week to make sure that those bills get followed up on is really, really important. All right, tip number 8. Part 2 should be tip 9. Set yourself up for success. Detail your billing policies in your retainer agreement. I've been referencing this tip pretty much the entire way through, but some helpful things that you may want to detail on that agreement so you set expectations with your client is how invoices are going to be delivered, when an invoice is considered past due, what happens when they're past due. Do you stop work? Do you give them another 15 days to get their bill together and then you stop work? Do you fire them? Make sure that they know the consequences for past due payment. Is their bill going to start to incur interest? Or if they pay early, will they be entitled to a discount? If you've set up an alternative fee arrangement, make sure you detail that arrangement in that retainer and talk about how funds will be collected and when. How they'll be billed. Is it at a discounted hourly? Is it contingency plus a success fee? Make sure that you detail all of these things, including collections procedures, how bill disputes should be handled, all of that. Make sure that that's all there for reference so that there's no question. You always have it to refer back to if there's ever a dispute about your bill. So now that we've gone over some basic tips, let's talk about the ideal billing workflow. Remember that if you've had any questions, make sure that you throw them into the questions widget. So the ideal billing workflow. First thing that you want to do is set up your invoice templates. So with whatever system that you're going to be using to invoice, the invoice template should be consistent. Make sure that your invoice templates look clean, that they represent your firm's brand, that everyone in your firm is trained on, how they should be documenting things. Make sure that your invoice templates account for all of the critical information that your clients want to see, like who worked on a particular item, what they've paid you recently, if you have any money in trust, their trust account ledger details, all of that good stuff. This is a main point of communication for clients, as I mentioned. So these one-line descriptions that are in this invoice would probably be inappropriate in most cases, other than costs and short tasks. You do want to try to give as much detail as possible without being completely verbose and ridiculous. This is also a great way to make that first impression for your firm and continue to give that professional appearance to your clients. Second thing you want to do, enable electronic invoice sharing. So you need to ask your client for approval to email the invoice rather than sending it through snail mail. I'm sure you've seen this with your own bill pay. If you want to go paperless and get all of your billing online, you usually have to opt into something like that. So make sure that your clients opt in a written way, just so they can say, oh, I never got your bill in the mail and that's why I haven't paid. No, you agreed when we signed your retainer that you would accept your invoices through email. A good system will also allow you to track whether that email was open and whether the invoice was viewed. So keep those things in mind as you're making your choices. And this eliminates the step of printing and mailing invoices each month. So that saves you money on paper, postage, time that it takes someone to actually print those out and stuff them and go to the post office. And on average, when you email your invoices, and allow for clients to pay you online, that gets you paid on average 21 days faster. So that's something to think about. So within the first 7 days of sending a bill, you're going to be collecting on that. So that's money in the door. It's a really great thing. Next thing you want to do is set up and apply taxes, interest, and discount rules. So if your client is in a jurisdiction or you're in a jurisdiction where taxes need to be accounted for legal services rendered, whether it applies based on where your client lives or where you're performing the services, you guys would know that based on what you're doing. You can set these things up in advance so that it's calculating those taxes as you're applying your time, so that you don't need to spend the time calculating this as it's time to send your bills out. What we're trying to do here is prevent a bottleneck at the end of the month or at the end of 2 weeks, however you're doing this, when you're trying to send your bills out. So when you're applying these rules in advance, it'll take these into account as you run your bills at the end of the month. You want to assess interest on past due invoices to help drive collections. Again, if this is something that you discuss with your client, put in writing, it's something that they expect. You're not a lender to your clients. A lot of states have found this to not be usury. So definitely do your research. If you're uncomfortable with it, call into ethics. Make sure you ask to make sure that you're comfortable with it, but it is a good way to drive collections. And then you want to also think about incentivizing early payment with discounts. So if a client pays within the first 5 to 7 days of receiving the bill, if you give them a small discount, whether it's 5%, 10%, or a loyalty discount could be great for clients that you have multiple matters with. Applying that to invoices is a great way to incentivize loyalty and get those early payments in. So these are definitely helping with bottlenecks and driving collections. Here's the next thing you want to do. Capture your time as you work. So for example, Rocket Matter allows you to bill directly from tasks, emails, documents. You can use multiple timers, anything that you're putting into the system, calendar events. If you've got a place that you want to or you need to be, and it's an activity that you would typically bill for, you can set it to bill in advance and then adjust your time accordingly, depending on how long you were actually there. But at least that's already in the system and you can just go back and make that adjustment, as opposed to reconstituting everything at the end of the month or writing it down on paper and then transferring it to your billing system. So technology can help. The other thing that you'll see here is a bunch of Amazon Echo devices. So Tally is a recent technology development that came out in 2017. And what they will allow you to do is speak to Alexa and say, hey, Tally, hey, Alexa, tell Tally that I just worked 30 minutes on the Jones case. And Alexa will ask you what the description is. You can speak the description to this timekeeper, and they will transfer it to the Tally dashboard. So you'll have the amount of time that you work and the billing description, the billing date, and all of that can be transferred to your practice management system or your billing system to capture your time. So don't even need to type it in if it's that much of a hassle. So think about your billers that might be interested in something like this. There are options to allow them to capture their own time without the tedious part of actually having to write it or type it. Another really helpful thing that you need to do as you're creating your ideal billing workflow is schedule a billing cutoff date. So the most well-run law firms bill on a biweekly or monthly basis, like we've mentioned. So when you're ready to bill, you need to identify a cutoff date. A lot of firms will put this on their firm-wide calendar. So any work that was done within that 2-week or 1-month period needs to be in before the billing cutoff date. And that doesn't mean that billing stops for any work moving forward, but anything that happened previously that you may have forgotten to put in needs to be in before that date. So whoever's in charge of billing, has the information that they need to run those pre-bills, or the attorneys that need to run their own bills and send them out have a date that they need to get all of their information into the system and send those invoices out by. Next thing you want to do is set up automated payment emails. So this is a way for you to communicate with your clients and inspire them to take action and pay those bills. So it should be warm and give them enough information that they need, like, the invoice is attached in a PDF. To pay your invoice, click here. To pay with credit card or e-check. It should also include contact information in case questions arise about the bill. If there's a main attorney on the case, maybe the signature should be from them. If there's someone that just handles client relations at your law firm, that's great. Then the email can be from that person, but just make sure that it's warm in nature and gives them all the information they need to pay easily. Run pre-bills, then batch billing. So this is the ideal process. You get all of your information into the system. Every attorney gets their information into the system regarding the work that they've done, the services that they performed by the billing cutoff date, and then pre-bills are run. So pre-bills will allow each attorney to see their invoices and check them for formatting, for errors, for omissions. Doesn't affect the matter ledgers or any trust balances, but it gives you an opportunity to see what's going out to the client before it actually, gets printed or gets emailed out to the client. And then if you use batch billing will allow you to generate all of your invoices at once in the format that you designate in just a few minutes. A lot of powerful billing systems have this. Rocket Matter does have this feature as well. Managing alternative fees. So we talked about alternative fees and how to set those up on your retainer agreement or your fee agreement. So if you have a situation, for example, when you have a monthly retainer agreement, you can set this up to bill automatically. This is one less thing that you would have to take care of. Your matters that you're billing hourly and then collecting on or deducting from trust, those that you would still continue to track as normal. But if you have a monthly retainer agreement, you can set this up to get out of the bank account or to charge the credit card on the same day every month. For payment plans for past due clients or flat fees, these are a great way to make sure that you're getting consistent money in the door, being flexible with your clients, letting them know that you do want to help them, you want their business, you'd like to continue to provide services, but you also expect timely payment and regular payment. So it'll allow those clients maybe having some financial hardship to get you some sort of payment on a regular basis. And then if you're charging a flat fee up front for something, before you start the majority of your work, you can set up a flat fee payment to get that taken care of, and then the rest of the work can commence. I understand that this may not work for all practice areas, but definitely something to think about. And then if you're doing reduced rate, reduced hourly as an alternative fee, you want to document those rates somewhere, either in your practice management system or your billing system, if they deviate from your normal hourly, so that you're keeping track of that and making sure that you don't inaccurately bill your clients. When you take care of these things up front, running your bills at the end of the month is a lot easier. And if there's ever any turnover, these things are documented, and it's one less thing for someone to handle. So let's just review some of the things that we've talked about as far as paperless billing protocols go. So you want to make sure that you ask your clients first. So definitely make sure that they clear it and that they're okay with it. If they're not okay with this and they insist on getting paper bills, you should, obviously go ahead with that, but this should really be the exception. Really try to encourage them to accept it through email. It's just so much easier on you. And there's also the ability for you to use a client portal if they don't want the email. And it's also a great way to securely communicate with other things like documents that you may not want to share through email. So client portal or email would be great. Leverage technology to help you send these electronic invoices via email. Remember that you want something that will help you track whether it's been opened, whether something's been paid. If it can automatically help you track those payments and notate the ledgers for you, that's even better. That's one less thing you have to do. And then make sure that you're allowing your clients to pay with credit card or e-check, in addition to paper check through the mail. Giving them more options to pay will get you more money in the door. So let's talk about best practices for collections. We talked about following up promptly. Can't really say it enough. Follow-up is definitely key. One idea we've seen is monthly Saturday billing and collections meetings, where all of the main stakeholders get together on a Saturday. They go over all of the necessary reports for them to see where their accounts are in terms of outstanding money, and work in progress, making sure that everyone is billing on a timely basis and a regular basis. And then getting a plan of action in for the next month to make sure that those collections percentages stay as high as possible. Charging interest is another collection procedure that seems to work for a lot of our firms. That threat of, having to pay more money on something that, they shouldn't, right? If they paid on time, is enough to get that money in the door quickly. Using evergreen retainers, we talked about that. Withholding draws from attorneys who don't meet their billing obligations. So if they're not sending timely bills, if they're not following up, if their collections percentage is below a certain threshold, withholding that draw until they start getting themselves together or get proper training and start turning things around. That's something that we've seen. And then making sure that you get buy-in from the whole office as far as how you handle past due accounts. So if, for example, a client calls in and they'd like to speak with the attorney, and the person that answers the phone takes a look into the system and sees that this client is past due on their bill by 60 days, the simple ask could be, I'd like to put you through to the attorney right away, and I just looked up your information. I noticed that you're about 60 days past due on your invoice, so I just wanted to ask how you'd like to take care of that payment today. That simple ask could turn into, oh, well, let me grab my credit card, or I'll use my checking account if that's okay. And having the ability to take those things over the phone is huge if you want to be able to accomplish this effectively. Some people consider lawsuits to recover monies that are past due. It may not be worth the cost, or it may. I don't know if any of you out there have any war stories you want to share about maybe going after a client for unpaid invoices, but definitely let me know and I'll share them with the group. But you may need to put in your retainer too that you can fire clients if it gets past a certain point. It's really unacceptable to be a lender, and you want to take these matters seriously and dedicate your time to good, regular paying clients, especially if you're following these procedures, getting them bills on time, being accommodating, offering them multiple ways to pay. You should really have people that are willing to be behind you and pay for your services and meet the value that you're giving them with the value that kind of effort and work demands. So here's some helpful technology for easy billing. We've got LexCharge payment processing. There are a ton of other payment processing companies out there. Do your research, vet them, and make sure that they know how to handle trust accounting, and don't take any fees from there, and that they also hook up to an operating account or some other account to be able to take fees. Rocket Matter is a practice management software that will allow you to manage a very, very effective billing procedure across your firm in a centralized way. QuickBooks is another really great way for you to hook all of these things in and make sure that you're doing regular trust account reconciliations. Ruby Receptionist is another one, and this seems a little unusual, but they also can track the time that they're spending on the phone with your clients, especially routing some of those calls or maybe doing any other messages or anything like that you may want to charge for. If they've got any questions that you've asked Ruby to take care of for you, they can track that time and then send it into your practice management system. And then Tally is the voice controlled timekeeping that I was mentioning or a little bit earlier. So I just wanted to take you through some of those. There are some additional resources that Rocket Matters has available to you as well. There's our payment processing for lawyers book, everything you need to know as far as rates and what certain things mean. In your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll also see a handout section, and that is going to have the Rocket Matter online invoicing cheat sheet for law firms. We're going to go through that in a second, but that's available here for you to download. And I'll take you through that really quickly. So we've got sending clients clear and attractive invoices, setting up e-check and credit card processing, batch billing, invoice sending with email, direct clients to pay online, reward early payments and penalize late payments, see which clients viewed their invoices. All of these things that we talked about, it's here for you in this really clear and concise cheat sheet. So that's a resource that you have available to you as well. And the Florida Bar PRI also has administrative forms. So on their website, if you go to pri.floridabar.com or .org, it has client communication forms and letters, and then there's a whole section on client fee agreements and letters of representation. So they've got some templates there for you that you can then add into. They've got a sample fee agreement, contract for legal services, all of that good stuff, so that you can at least have somewhere to get started if this is not a regular part of your practice yet. So definitely check out their website, a ton of other good resources. And they also have all of our archived CLEs. A lot of them have technology credit associated with them. So if you're looking for some free CLE credits, definitely check out the website, and you'll have access to those as well. So with that, I will go ahead and take a look at the questions. Let's see. Do you recommend a source for warm, kind, understanding, yet firm and productive collections letters? Ooh, okay. I don't know if the Florida Bar PRI has those on their website, but I'd definitely take a look. A good Google search might help you find some. But yeah, if anyone has any resources that you can share with me in the chat box or questions widget that I can pass along to everyone, definitely let me know. Okay. So let's see. How do you best format an invoice template? Okay, so you can do this in a couple of different ways. We've seen people format them in Excel and in Word. You can definitely use pre-configured invoice templates. Like Word also has pre-configured invoice templates. For example, with Rocket Matter, you do get 6 pre-configured invoice templates that you can easily put your logo into. And then we also have pre-configured merge fields that will pull the information directly from Rocket Matter and spit it into that invoice for you. The formatting is generally really clear. We also have a professional services team that can configure those invoices for you. So that's definitely something that you can check out. Oh no, I think someone's having sound issues. I hope all of you have been hearing this, and I think most of you have been with these. Okay. All right, folks, so if you guys have no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end a little early here. So if you're interested in seeing how Rocket Matter can help you collect more and run a smooth billing process every month, you can visit us at rocketmatter.com or call 866-710-1845, and one of our great account executives will take you through the product and see how it can work for your firm. Thank you very much for joining us today. The CLE number for this course is 2846. That's 2846. So take a look at that and write that down. Don't forget to download the handout that's in the GoToWebinar control panel. This will also be sent out in the email tomorrow. So if you're having any technical difficulties, you'll also get it in the follow-up email with the recording and the slides from today. If we don't have any more questions, we've got one more. Does Rocket Matter integrate with Xero? We actually integrate with QuickBooks Online only at this time, but it's something that we're definitely exploring. All right. Okay, folks. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you again next month for another Rocket Matter CLE. Have a great day.